Rob, how are you?
You? Oh, good.
Not too bad now. Trying to get this interview lined up since before Christmas. You're a busy man. Listen, thanks a million for agreeing to the interview because I think it's just something that beginners and even experienced members in the club will benefit from. Like you've had some brilliant years since I've been in the club. I think your grey greens are fairly well renowned. That lad is probably stuffed now, is he? Or
He's
will
still
be
actually
will
he's
be
still in
stuffed.
the breeding box. He actually bred me two nice youngsters recently. Oh, see
Wow,
how he goes. He's still going.
brilliant. But it's going to be great just to and congrats on all those wins, well deserved and
Thank you,
some
pal. Yeah.
amazing boards. Um, yeah, so I just think like if we can have a chat about your setup, we can get into more detail like things on avian nutrition, your regimen in the boardroom in terms of hygiene and maintenance, and then really important then just your approach to breeding and showing. So before we get into the nitty gritty, just give us a little insight on how you started. How did you get into the hobby?
When I started. I was only a youngster when I started. The guy next door to me, he had exhibition budgies. He used to breed them. His name was Tony Murphy. But I don't ever recall him showing them. But he had some good boards, and he was in the ring of like good breeders in Ireland coming to visit him because I used to see them at the time, and he used to be telling me who they were and all that, like for on the show scene. I think
Right,
back in the time McHenry was one, and Sammy Gallagher was another, and there was a few others, and there was another guy I forget his name at the time. I was only a young fella, and my memory's kind of faded since then. But
mm.
there was some good
Yeah.
breeders around back then, and a lot of them. The likes of
It's interesting. It's interesting how it's kind of changed from you can almost walk around. I remember Alan Martin saying in one of his interviews he could walk around his estate and hear who had birds.
yeah, and Swords was the same. Like there was a lot of boardmen in Swords, like, and there still is, like, uh, which we had a club. We set it up in 1985, I think it was, through some uh, names back then. It would have been John Sherlock, and which would have been he would have been a budgie man back then. He's a foreign man now, and Ollie Byrne.
Right.
He was one of the founder members of Swords Club also, and it was myself and a few others. It was who was Donny Hughes was there as well.
Right. These are all names foreign to me, but yeah.
Yeah, no, back then, but that's, I think, Jesus, was in 1985, 1986. Could have been even 84, I forget.
Right. And what
It's
did you start off with, Rob? Did
I
you
started off with budgies. I actually started off with a pet board. My mum and dad bought me a cage from a Bertie and a board, I think, with it, and that was it. And then the
right?
bug was thing, and then visiting the guy next door, his aviary all the time, like in and out. You know what I mean? It was just,
Yeah.
if he wasn't there, sometimes he would get me to feed him or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's how
Right.
it
So you had a
all
little
kicked off.
apprenticeship.
Yeah, just the size of them and all that, like towards what I had, like as a pet board. And back then, like they obviously wouldn't square up to the boards of today, but they were
Mm.
certainly bigger at the time than and more stylish than the pet shop board. You know what I mean? But
Right.
that's where I got hooked on all the colors, and
And did
basically that.
did you buy stock off him or
Yeah,
did
he
you
used to give me boards. Yeah, 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 and I used to.
did you build something small then by way of an
Yeah,
aviary?
built a small shed. I've always had a small shed. It worked well for me all the time. So why change it? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I got the choice, I would love a 20-foot shed, but it's not reality, you know what I mean, or practicality for me. Like with work and everything, you know what I mean. You have to limit what you do, like to
Yeah.
put the
You
best
need
in,
to.
and get the best out of them. You know what I mean. I wouldn't have the time to keep it as a full time thing. You know what I mean. And
Yeah.
like there's not a lot of people in the hobby over here in Ireland, so to have
Yeah.
a number of big throwing out big numbers of boards, it just wouldn't be practical. Like
Yeah.
one, you got to say to yourself, well, where are these going to go? Is there a market for them, or what's going to happen with them? Like you
That's
probably
it,
look at
isn't it?
throwing them into a pet shop, and God knows what's going to happen to them then after that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're talking about manageability there. I have a small boardroom as well. And I mean, it's a big commitment as it is, just the husbandry of the board. So the bigger it gets, the more responsibility and time it's going to drag. So I like actually having a small room.
My like 12 cages is my ideal setup.
Yeah.
That's basically it. And to be honest, perfectly honest with you, my shed, it wouldn't take more than 12 cages. Sometimes I'll try to fit more in, but like realistically, 12 is the max.
Hmm. Hmm.
If 12
And it's
cages,
working for you.
yeah, if 12 cages work for me and they produce what I need to produce, I'm happy with that, As I was told one time, like it's not about sheds, it's about the birds.
100%.
So,
Yeah. Is there like your initial stock source then was your neighbor, but
no,
as
that's
things
back, that's back years ago. He would have passed away long since. Like when you're growing up in your teenage years, it was thrown by the wayside, out dating and doing what you got to
course.
do.
Yeah.
Couple of years in America spent and all that, So back then, it's just I started back in 2009, back into the
Okay.
board. Like I had my kids kind of semi-reared and at that stage, and I had a bit of time. I took a redundancy offer at the time, and I had a bit of time on my hands, and I got bored, and probably stupidly I said, "Oh, what about the words?" So
Lovely.
jump back
And
into the ball.
where did you buy then, or where did you source
I
from
started
then?
with John Evan. John Evan, I was got. It was a guy, Mark Argue. He was a friend of mine at the time, and he was getting out of them. Also, he gave me a couple of boards, and he arranged for me to go to Joe. And I went to Joe, and I got on very well with Joe, and I got my original stock from Joe, and that'd be the main foundation of the boards. Would be for
Gentleman of the hobby.
at the time he had some good boards like Huxley and Marchant boards coming in all the time, and so he
Right.
had some very good yellow faces, and yellow faces was a good start in my shed. I had some very nice yellow faces for a long time, and I
Right.
just kind of then transferred the yellow faces into a different variety to hide them for a bit and just try and make super boards if they come back,
Hmm.
styles, get the shape style that I wanted. And unfortunately, it all came back in the grey green style.
Right. Well,
Stuff with grey green, but
that's
sure,
a
good.
board I take on.
Uh,
Love a grey green. Love a grey green.
yeah, but hopefully
Um,
now these yellow faces are starting to protrude again, so hopefully some more of them come out.
have you turned over your board since that initial stock, or is there any families going way back?
No, so that's mainly it. It'd be going back mostly Huxley March and Blood, like every year, like from probably 2014 on, like a couple of boards a year mainly. That's suitable for my shed. It was at the time, and still
Okay.
is. But I can't with 12 cages. When you have boards that and you feel are right, you're
Mm.
not going to do too much with them really. Like just bring a couple of outcrosses in and hopefully better them and run them across a few lines in the shed, and hopefully that works. It has worked up to now.
Right.
But yeah, there was some other breeders I got boards off, but they would have been closely to Huxley and Marchand as well. They would have been off them lines, so you
Yeah.
know, stretch the blood out a little bit to
Keep
bring
the
it back.
genetics close, but not too close, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many birds have you got in the room? You mentioned 12 cages, but what would you
And I'd sort
post?
of 12 cages. This year I kept for breeding purpose. I'd hold about probably 80 to 100 birds in the
Right.
shed. That's kind of max for me.
Okay. And what's the
With that
split,
amount, like
Rob?
what's that, Paul?
Sorry for cutting across you. What's that split in terms of sex then? Like, would you keep more cocks than
Well,
hens?
through like
Hens than cocks?
probably about 50 of them would be breeding birds, like on a ratio. And I'd cut back now, and probably for around at the end of the year, I usually go away in September or whatever, and I'd cut back for then and keep about 50 birds for myself and that'd be a ratio of probably 20 cocks to 30 hens for my
Right.
breeding season, and take it from there, and then hopefully then add probably about 60, 70, maybe 80 youngsters to that,
Right.
and then it's time to start weeding them back again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
being selective.
that process is just like how do you manage that? Like, is that just selection visually?
Yeah, a ruthless selection have to be. That's the way I look upon it. It either it cuts or it doesn't cut, but it doesn't mean that the bird is any lesser. It's just it gives me a better option for selection, take the best out of the best, and that's it.
Do you
But
ever hold back in, like an insurance policy, like if it's a lesser bird, but you know it's holding good
oh,
genes?
definitely, yeah, from thing, yeah, like if you have stud of birds and they're across the line, your birds are going to have the same blood in them. You know what I mean? You're going to get the same results, and you probably get the same results possibly from the lesser birds, the lesser
Okay,
sibling. Like
right.
I'll always keep a lesser sibling, possibly a hen, for that purpose. Like the better the bird is, as I always say, in the show cage, the worse it is in the breeding cage, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating at times. And you say to yourself, "There's two perfect birds. You put them together, you get nothing," and
Heartache.
it's disappointing. You get a little joey out of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get. I find you do get your best results from something unexpected, and you say, "Wow, where did that come from?" And then you look at it and say, "Oh yeah." So
Yeah.
sense at the end of the day to what you're looking at. Well,
Interesting. And your room, just what's the dimensions of your room, Rob? Is that
it's an odd shape. It's actually I've never actually measured it. I think it goes back to 14 foot in the thing, but it goes at a triangle, Paul. So there's only three walls.
right? Okay.
Shed goes at a triangle, so it goes an arc of shape.
Right. So
I'd
it's
say
hard to,
if you're to the ground space, if you're to level it out, I'd suppose it'd be something like 10 by 6 or something like that. That's
right.
size what you get. You know what I mean? So basically, I'd have one wall of flight breeding cages, and the other would be a flight, kind of top and bottom flight.
But you don't have much room to kind of maneuver things around. You just have it kind of fixed in one
Oh,
spot as
no,
it's.
they're on wheels, and sometimes I just revamp the room around. Just I can change it around to whatever
Okay.
suits me. You know what I mean? Sometimes at the summertime when I'd fill the flight up, I'd move it up towards the door and have the door open and
Oh, okay. Nice.
blow in and get into them.
That's
You know,
great. Yeah, you have that option. You've Ospringer cages, don't you?
I do, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have them in. There's one batch of 8, and they're on wheels, and there's another batch of 6 on wheels, and then there's another single foil of 3 on wheels. So I can actually move and maneuver them wherever I want to position them in the room, wherever. They'd fit through the door, take them out, clean them, or whatever I need to do. They're actually great and handy, the Austringer.
They
But
really are.
it's make it
Yeah.
handy too because you can just take them out and do a big scrub down in the room if you need to. You know what I mean? Just to freshen it all up.
That's it. Yeah. Start the season right by
Yeah.
getting your hygiene right from the get-go. Yeah. So, like, obviously, like from seeing your boards, Robbie, gray greens are obviously like the powerhouse boards, and you've got some fantastic grays and some really nice chicks coming through from them, based on what I've seen on Facebook. Do you have any? Do you keep any rare varieties, or have you ever focused
No,
on?
I have some dilutes running in the family of the birds, and
Right.
occasionally they'll pop out, but I've never really done too much with them, to be
Okay.
honest with you. Like, occasionally one will pop out and I'll say, maybe I like that one and keep it. But no, like basically, if a good one comes out, I keep it, yes. But I've never kind of. I think the shed is too small to kind of go down on
Mm,
a separate line. I did that when I started. I tried to keep albinos, red eyes, and just I was using them with spangles and that, and it was starting to get out of hand. There was splits here, splits there, and
yeah.
I was just I said no, I didn't. And to be honest with you, I hate to look at them in the nest, the albinos and the red eyes, and just
Right.
they just don't do it for me. But
Yeah. You
that's
got to.
just
You
me
got to
personally.
focus. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's just me personally with the red eyes. They don't float my boat, and I
Yeah.
don't dabble in them at
And
all.
is that due to the size of them? Like
No, it's just
difficult getting the size in
the
them, or
split factor and all that, Paul. It's just that I just didn't want to be delving into that, especially
yeah.
with the size of the shed. I didn't want to have maybe half of the stud boards and they're all split, and then you're running that. You're building, you're increasing your red eyes all the time. When you're putting them
Yeah.
into norm, especially spangles, like splits, they're throwing out red eyes here and there. Just
Yeah. You want to have
spangles.
some degree of knowledge of what's going to come out, in terms of the forecast of what you're going to get.
Yeah, like even with spangles, sometimes they can be a bit overtaken with in a shed also. Like so, you kind of have to be selective and watch what you're doing with them. You know what I mean? If you like them, well and good, and if you want a shed full of them, probably easier to do that. But And Spangle is a fairly fertile bird as well. I don't
Yeah,
know what it is in the red eyes, but maybe it's because of their fertility and maybe
yeah,
size wise they they do the
yeah.
business.
I was only having a conversation with Declan there and just chatting about, like he said, the spangles I had were good. And I said, I'd love to be able to convert the size of the spangles that I have into grey greens or greys. And
Right.
it's just, it's a tough job because inevitably you'll put a grey green with a spangle and they won't match up or no, they won't breed for you. But I suppose that's part of the challenge.
I remember when I made the transition after I had Spangles with the albinos and all that, but they became split in that and I didn't want them. So I just got rid of all them to make a new transition. And for the first year or two, I got in some Spangles, some very nice Spangles, I think from Mark Rogers at the time. And I never bred Spangles with them. They just,
Right.
the race just it didn't work out. And
Okay.
they fizzled out in the shed. And then I just left it then for a few years. And then I came back and got a couple in, but then again, they do take over. So you
Yeah.
got to be very careful with them,
Yeah.
selective.
Yeah. 100%. And cinnamons, right? Same.
Cinnamon's not too, I don't mind cinnamon at all, like or grays or whatever, any kind of cinnamon. I think cinnamons are quite powerful birds. Like
Right.
people say, oh, I don't like cinnamons and they're tight feather and all this. Cinnamons are far from tight feather now. Years ago, they might have been tight feather, yellow feather, but certainly now I've seen cinnamons. I had some good cinnamons over the years myself, but I've never had that tight feather
Hmm.
that we talk about. Like
Hmm.
people say opalines too, they would never have an opaline in the shed. Like every bird has a useful purpose if
Yeah.
used properly. I was in a
Different
shed
feather
I was
structures.
in a shed last year in England, and the white rose stood, and I've seen some of the best cinnamons I ever seen in my life, and it just ran through the shed, but there wasn't one bad one in it.
Right.
And I think Daniel Lutov is another person too to for cinnamons, some powerful
Yeah.
cinnamons he has also.
Yeah.
But no, I would not turn my nose up. A good bird is a good bird, and
Well, that's
that's
it, isn't it?
you got to use it. It's there's a lot of pieces in the jigsaw to make the puzzle out, and
That's it.
people have
100%.
to use it to get to where they want to go.
Hmm. Yeah. Lutov says, I think the majority of his birds have cinnamon or opaline backgrounds. So, because of the benefits of the feather structures from both of the varieties.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. And just people call me crazy because I breed breed Budgerigars, and they often ask what attracts you to it. But like, just flipping that question to yourself, like, what motivates you about keeping the birds?
I don't know. It's like a birdman is a birdman, and you wouldn't keep them if you didn't have an interest in them or a liking for them, and that's basically it. Like, I think some people like cars and fill their shed with cars if they have the room, or motorbikes and whatever to be. But
Yeah,
yeah, I do have other hobbies that takes me away from that. You know what I mean? I do with the fishing and other stuff, and you
right.
know, but no, birds I've always liked, and the budgies especially. But
Yeah,
as I was told years ago in the hobby, like in the swords club, like there were a lot of canary men, there were finch men, multitude of different breeders of different things, and they always said a birdman's a birdman, and that's it. It doesn't never go out of you.
in the blood.
Yeah, like people sell up and they have the bug and they don't last too long, and then they come back and just it's a
Yeah,
reoccurring thing. I think once you have the bug, that's it. It's there to stay.
yeah. It's a shame though. It is like it's becoming a rarity though. Like I mean, in terms of
Oh,
young lads coming
absolutely.
in and
Yeah, but your kids these days, like if they were to see a wild bird in the wild, I don't think they'd even know what kind of bird it was. Like really,
yeah,
apart from a crow and a pigeon, they probably wouldn't know any other type of bird.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. Known. Like I think the PlayStation
PlayStations.
plus houses and like it's just different structure back then. Like people are like there's less like houses have got smaller gardens, they've got smaller. You
That's
know,
it.
people have probably got a little bit more rattier. They don't want birds belting out noise beside them.
Yeah, all of those factors are big reasons why. But I think technology, over and above anything else, is just drawing people away from hobbies like this. So,
Yeah,
or kids, Just
Animals, the thing,
is what
animals
it
in
is.
general, like I don't think kids have been taken away from rearing animals and doing different
Mm,
things like that, dogs, cats, not having them. And that's probably not true, no fault of their own. It's probably just a space thing. And plus people working more hours and different hours and, you know,
hmm.
the, the husbandry of keeping that.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, it's the responsibility factor too, as you
Yeah.
say. And speaking of responsibility, one of the big things for me is, and I really have to be in the mood for it, is maintaining the shed the way it should be. So hygiene, it's a massive factor with birds. They're messy creatures,
It's
um,
a,
and you need to keep on top of it. So that's I was going to ask you a couple of questions on your regimen or schedule around, maintaining the stud.
when you kind of spend years in the shed, like, like my missus would be giving out to me, you're doing that again, you're doing that again. Like you only done it. Like you keep changing things to make it easier for you, more efficient. Like
Yeah,
at one stage, like even cage wise, I started off probably made my own cages and then I went up to a different cage and then I probably ended with wire cages. You just kind of build yourself up gradually to what suits you and what you're comfortable with to make things easier, obviously.
yeah,
And even like plastic, I've lined the shed with plastic sheeting, and it's just it's anything to make it easier for cleaning down and
yeah.
more efficient. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you need to be going in there, getting in and getting out and enjoying the birds for
like,
what they
yeah,
are
yeah,
rather than
exactly.
just,
Yeah, to give the birds time, and you have to recognize how much time you want to spend in the shed. Also, people have families, and that.
yeah,
Not saying the less time you spend, but you want to make it more efficient for yourself. Like
yeah.
just spread the time, balance it out.
So what's the current cleaning schedule like? What
I
do you
wouldn't
do?
really have a current cleaning schedule. I have like every week or two. Like if I see the cage is getting grubby, like I would certainly clean them. Like when I be in the shed tipping around doing something, I have a sink in the shed, which is a great asset. I've hot and
Mhm.
cold water, thanks to Alan Conroy.
All
He was
right.
somewhere on the job to do it.
No leaks, no.
No, that's a little sink in the shed, and it's worth its weight in gold. Like it's certainly does the job. Like it makes things easier when you're in the shed and tiddling about, and you might have that 3 or 5 or 10 minutes extra, and see something and clean it up, and it just every little bit every day kind of reduces the
Yeah,
overall shaft at the end of the week or second week or whatever. But yeah, probably the flight would get 2 weeks out of it, and but you see yourself when it starts getting grubby and you know clean it down. But
yeah.
for a specific regime, I wouldn't really have it. Like I wouldn't say I'm going to do this on Saturday or whatever. Like you
Okay.
can't have things like that. I do shift work, so I can't say to myself I'm going to spend that time on Saturday. So
Right.
you
With
know, what I
you.
mean? If I had a day off during the week, I would probably fit it into that schedule rather than a
But on
specific.
average it's weekly where you do bits and pieces.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even an inspection of a nest box, if I see it need a change, and I just whip it out and change it there and then. I
Yeah.
use stringer nest boxes and cages, so they're very handy. I can actually whip it. I have spare inserts for them, so I can just pull that out and slot a new one in, give it a rub of cloth inside, and it's spray and
Yeah.
perfect then within a couple of minutes. And then just replace the nest box, clean it out, then the nest pan, put it in another one, then whenever I feel like, whenever it
Yeah.
needs.
Do you
But
use any bedding in the
I
flights
do. I
or
use my go-to, my firm believer of the nest bedding is Gold Chip. It's my god to me. I
right,
wouldn't use anything different. That's
right.
it's
Where do
just
you source that from, Robbie?
I always pick up a few bags of it in England.
Okay. You
Yeah.
can't get it here, can you?
There used to be some guys sold it here, but no, not really. No.
And that's the finer chip,
They do
wood chip.
different grades of it. It's just it's heat treated, Paul, and everything is burnt off it, and it's sterile and it's dust free. It's amazing, and like in a box, especially with sweaty hands or whatever like that, or
Yeah, yeah. Good
it's moisture in
absorption.
the box. It's absorbed up. You know what I mean? You don't see anything, like even droppings. It just absorbs it all up. Just
Right.
makes it so easy. Like for hygiene for the birds, it's it's a no.
Yeah,
It's a must for me. Like with the chicks in the nest boxes. Touch
yeah.
wood. I haven't seen French malt in a long time. And
Right.
yeah,
You think that's linked to it, moisture in the box, or
yeah, I don't think it's linked to moisture in the box. I feel that the bedding of gold chip, I think it's worth its weight. It's worth its weight in
okay?
gold.
Right, right.
Definitely,
Hence the
it's
name.
my
That's your star product.
yeah, absolutely.
Do you use anything else like product wise for cleaning, or do you use anything?
No, I use the column leaks, the clear might, you know, the spray.
Yeah,
I think it's clear might, is it? What they call it? Clear might.
right.
It's
Okay, I don't know it, but I know Colin Lease, but I don't know the product. Yeah,
it's diluted into a spray bottle like of water. You can dilute it into it and just spray around when you're cleaning up. And I
right.
usually when I prepare the boxes, I usually clean down with that when I'm cleaning the cages and spray that around and wipe it down with a cloth and then just give it a light mist and then let it dry in. And sometimes then I'd keep an RDOF spray for the nest boxes solely. But as regards to my control, uh, for a couple of years previous to this year, I've been using a Nutrimite, red mite, Nutriboard, it's called,
All
and
right,
put it in the water. It kind of smells a little bit like clothes, but I've
right.
been using that for 2 years and never seen anything for them 2 years. So obviously,
Okay.
you give it every month or second month in the water and it keeps
And
everything at
the Buzz product at the moment for my is Exalt. I haven't used it myself.
right
Have you
off
used
that. Yeah, I actually I changed to previous to about 3 months ago. I started with the Excel,
it? Right.
and yeah, I believe it's a good product. But as I say to you, I couldn't fault the other product, so I believe
Mhm.
this one is the same. So hopefully things
It's
stay
an
like that.
extra insurance policy, I suppose. The
Yeah, well,
Exalt.
people swear by it, and you know, they say it's the go-to product. So
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Expensive as well for the
yeah,
bottle
but
that
like
you
it's expensive. It's expensive if you have an outbreak as well.
true. Yeah, yeah.
Prevention is better than cure, as I say. Like, and I'd prefer to keep it that way.
Right. Just what's your thoughts on the like? I've often had nest boxes that had extreme moisture where I'd have to dab down the top and the box door and all around the sides almost daily or even twice daily. And then another one beside it could be bone dry.
Yeah,
Same.
some hens are like I feel like it's most likely the hen because like some hens they're bigger and they obviously sweat more and you know what I mean they're to the heat or whatever they're
Right.
producing in the but
So it's bird specific rather than placement in the.
it could well be. I don't know whether you're near a vent or whatever,
Yeah,
like airflow or
yeah.
uh, I've
It's a
never
pain
really.
in the arse.
Yeah. You do get it sometimes with a lot of plastic, especially in cold weather or damp weather. The damp weather is a nuisance. Just
Really is. Yeah,
yeah, it
100%.
just throws things around in the boardroom,
Yeah.
like on every aspect, like on eggs, everything. It just plays havoc. Unfortunately, with our weather in Ireland, like last week we were freezing ourselves out of the place. This week we're going
10,
around the
11 degrees. Yeah. Now.
I was driving down by the airport yesterday. It was 14 degrees.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It's
mental.
bonkers.
Yeah,
Bon-
and that can happen in the summertime too. You're getting extreme heat, then you're getting birds ready for a show, and then suddenly then it's freezing cold all of a sudden.
Mhm.
And then they're just it's throwing them back into a mold. Like
Yeah.
it's a no-win situation. Unfortunately, they're sensitive birds nowadays than what they were probably 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. The
Definitely.
closer the gene pool it gets, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
presents more problems.
Well, there's a lot more feather on the boards now too, and it's very hard to maintain all the time. To keep it like some boards are extreme feathering, and you know to keep them in condition, it's
Lots of
impossible.
protein.
You'll
Yeah.
probably just get a week or two out if you're lucky, and if that corresponds with your show date, well and good. That's why I kind of like to stick to a stylish type of bird, and they have more chance of staying in condition. The feather is a little bit structure would be a little bit different, but
Yeah. And
it's
all
one.
well and good if the heavier feathered bird is in condition on the day.
Exactly, yeah, that's the chance you're taking. You know what I mean? I feel that I get more out of the stylish bird as a condition, whereas the more bulkier feathered bird, you know, I'm lucky if I have him for that week or the second week. He
Yeah,
could, and then he could drop a spot, you know, that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
No,
And sorry,
definitely not a tighter feathered bird, but like uh, some birds are very extreme. Like there's too much feather on them. The feather's way too long, and
yeah,
just you know they're balls
you
of
can see
feather.
it draping over the type of where you see it draping over the perch kind of thing.
Oh, it's massive. Yeah, yeah. But I think it's all about a combination of getting it right and getting what you want.
Yeah,
That's basically, I think,
that
you have to
that's
find yourself a happy medium. If you get the happy medium, well and good, and if it works for you, obviously,
yeah.
don't change it
And
if you're happy.
if the judge likes it in terms of their ideal bird as well, that plays into
Oh,
it
yeah.
too.
Yeah. What's your luck? You're changing. I think over the last years, anyway, probably in the last 10 years, the boards are changing. There's I don't know whether it's good for the good or for the bad. They're changing. I've seen canaries yesterday and border canaries, and they're extreme tuft. Holy God, I've never seen anything like them. They're
Right.
they're mental looking there.
And is that presenting problems as well for
Ah,
that?
yeah, they took the canaries way too far. Yeah, like they're
Right.
actually trying to bring them back now to what they originally were because
Mm-hmm.
they just they don't breathe.
Mm.
You know.
And I mean, you
So,
hear the likes of the likes of Lutop saying it like 4, 5, 6 years ago, even more, that he knew he went way out over the top and he was pulling back.
yeah,
So
I see fellas even on the continent, and you know these birds, and they're bigger than their hand. Nearly the feathers are sticking out every direction on their hand, but they're artificially inseminating. Like
yeah,
the structure of the bird is way gone. If it can't produce itself, it's
yeah.
definitely like out. You know.
And what's your thoughts on, like, I have a cockbird out there and it's a fantastic bird, but he's a damaged foot and he's only a young bird and I'm hoping that he will be able to tread the hen. But I have said to myself, Jesus, this bird is so good, I don't want to lose his genes. And I would consider that if it was going to pull his genes through. So that's where there's a genuine injury, not the
Yeah.
bird not
Mm.
being able to do it and he's healthy. Like, what's your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I don't know. I think it's wrong, and that's basically my view on it. But you know,
Yeah,
there's people that do it, and whether it's knowingly to do it or privately to do it or whatever, I don't know. But it's not something I would resort
right.
to. I,
Okay.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't be going out blowing budgies then.
No, it's not
I,
something
I,
I'd be interested in myself, naturally enough.
straw in the glass.
Oh God. But on the topic of like the feather and I suppose the necessity for really good nutrition and high protein feed, like what sort of in terms of like your seed mix and your soft food, what's in that?
I don't use soft food. I'm a firm believer, and everything I waste from the kitchen goes straight out to the boards, where it's vegetables, eggshells, whatever.
Senior eggshells, yeah.
Plenty of them. Yeah, no, basically what is waste products for me in the kitchen, like when I'm preparing dinner, or my
Mm-hmm.
missus is preparing dinner, like bits of celery, bits of broccoli, leave it whole. They have so much messing around and fun falling around eating it. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and busy. Like I've often put the same stuff, mashed it up in or shredded it into bowls and mixed this in and mixed that in, and it's not it. They
Right.
pick a bit of it and that's it. You know what I mean? They pick what they want out of it. And you're throwing most of it in the bin, or it's going sour or whatever, like lying overnight or whatever. But you see, when you put the whole veg in or a whole carrot in, you'll come out an hour or two later and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is no waste for them. They get enjoyment out of pulling out of it and falling around it and
Oh, they do, yeah. Big
but
time. So do
that
you
works for me.
so what's the like generally speaking, and I could be wrong on this, like the seed will provide what 12 to 15% protein, but they reckon protein levels should be up around 20, 25.
Yeah, well, like protein levels should be only around 15 anyway. Like there is some instances where it's up to 30, but the body dumps protein. Like if it can only store so much protein, and then it'll dump the rest. Like whether it's you, me, or whatever. Like like too much of something is a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like
So do
your body
you
can't
don't,
cope with too much. It's going to dump it, or you're going to have some implications. And
and
as
Rob, so do you just stick to seed then? Or
no,
and
what do you mean, Paul?
so do you, so is your, I know you mentioned vegetables is a big part of their diet, but do you put like eggs in or anything like that to boost
Oh, no, I
protein?
use an egg food. I use a Willy Malton moist egg food for as
Okay,
feeding of the things, but I wouldn't make up a soft food daily for them.
okay, right.
No. And they have their vitamin drawers as well, whatever bits and pieces, like their different powders and that. Like I use Kilpatrick's, the black mills.
Okay.
Yeah, and I use the Frasers have some good products there. They have the Boost.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, I use that, and I use the Fraser Farm, which is excellent.
yeah.
The quality of that is unreal, and other products like that. And then I like the Matrix Grit. Uh, I started using Fraser's a couple of years ago after it, and recently the mix is not the same, so I'll be changing back to the Matrix.
Mm-hmm. And you use Thriving Glass as well, Rob. I've seen you use that. I use
Yeah,
that. It's really
yeah.
good.
And there's another one too. It's a pinky one. It's like the Thriving Glass. It's a dry one. I forget the name of it now. It's a pigeon one. It's a red mineral, but it's a dry. It's not. It's like Thriving glass, but it's dry. It's,
Okay.
yeah. It's
So it's high fat content. There's protein and fat in that, isn't there?
yeah,
Vitamin
yeah,
E.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think one should be careful too, because people talk about a lot of birds with rings have to cut rings off, and the rings are getting smaller. Well, it's not really, like it's the birds' feet are getting bigger. I've seen instances in birds before with gout, and it's
Right.
swelling of the leg, which obviously is an overindulgence of protein.
Right.
So there,
Okay.
it'll swell the leg, and you're going to be having problems then with cutting it off.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I haven't had one, but I've heard of people having that experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
And um, I remember listening to Harry Hockaday, and he swears by bottled water over
yeah,
tap. What's your approach there on water?
doesn't make a difference to me. I use the tap water here. I've used boiled water. I've used bottled water. I've used tap water. To be honest with you, I haven't. I've changed the pHs of it. No, what comes out of it, it's fine. You know,
And no
where
no
I am
difference.
here, like I don't know whether it's drinkable for myself, but like the birds drink it in the water in the wild, and it's not too hygiene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I use the water here, and it's a very high pH content. The water here, we've a high
Okay.
pH. It's over 7% here, seven point
Yeah.
six or something
That's
like that.
special swords water, yeah.
No, well, the higher the pH in it, the more iron be in it,
Right.
also
Okay.
calcium in it. So
Right.
that's I've never fed calcium with it. I fed calcium one time here because of the pH of the water. It was causing havoc with the hens. The hens were laying
Okay.
the shells too hard on the eggs, and just
Right.
mayhem it did.
So you don't top up or have a need to top up because of the pH
No,
with
never.
the
No,
calcium levels.
yeah, a lot of herbs and that, like if you would have a lot of calcium in it too. If you fed them,
Mm.
like I throw some herbs out sometimes, parsley and cabbage and all that, and
Right.
thyme would be another one, a bit of sage, and
I think
sometimes
the natural diet most certainly will serve them well because they just, and it just goes to show because they lap it up, right? They
yeah,
play with it, but they lap it up as well.
yeah. Well, we also must remember. I think sometimes we overindulge with the birds. They're only small little things at the end of the day, and what is their main diet? They don't need too much more to bring that up to what they need. So it's a balance with them too. I
Yeah.
think feeding them too much stuff. I think we certainly. nowadays, like somebody gets on and they say, geez, I was given that product last week and it's unreal. And then everybody jumps on ship and then everyone's giving it to the birds. And I think
Yeah.
it's influential that way. Like, but I think certainly the birds get more than we get.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
earnings are
And you
greater.
do see the hens put on a hell of a lot of weight as well around the vent or their stomach, the abdomen. I've seen hens become more inactive and put on weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe in putting weight on them before, like,
Yeah.
building them up before breeding season. Absolutely, the hens and that, and then getting them fit for breeding. And that's true visual, like really what you'll see them coming into condition yourself. Like you can put two boards down to just sit in the box. If they're not fit, if they're not ready for breeding, they're not going to breed. And it's as
Yeah.
simple as that. So like, unfortunately, people try and put whatever cages they do down. If they do 20 cages or 10 cages or 30 cages, they expect all them birds to be ready to go in. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
There might be
And
half of them.
Robbie, what's your approach to that? Like I'd be pairing in my mind and say, yeah, I'm gonna put that to that. But as you say, if I look at the bird and their behavior and it's not right, I'd pair it with anything that's fit within
Yeah,
reason. You do
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 absolutely. Even sometimes in a flight, sometimes you might have some success with one bird that just don't work out. Maybe the couple don't like each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as Daniel Lutov says, he takes a love couple out when he sees two birds, then they're compatible and they want to go. And sometimes you get your results from them birds.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And
But
even I remember talking to Ron and Darren Malloy about a pair that wasn't working for me, and they were saying that like they're sensitive to color. They'll pair up the budgies themselves. They'll have a preference on color.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, I've often had birds and put them down, and one of them would not like that color, and that's it, and they bait the head off each other.
Yeah.
And you put a grey grain in or a light green or whatever, like if it's a grey, they just have certain colors, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Which
you
amazed
can't
me.
change
It
it.
was news to me.
Yeah, like me, I like blondes.
Hope your wife is a blonde if she's not listening, one or the other. Um, so just that's what's the seed mix you use? Do you have any preference on seed?
I use a 50/50. I use two seed mixes, and I use growths alongside that on a separate bowl. I use a 50/50 seed mix, and
Okay.
a combination of which would be an aviary seed, which would have a bit of everything in it to be uh,
Okay.
not so much the canary in it, but more millets
Yeah.
and growths and niger seed, a bit of niger, and then I like to have a bit of hemp in it also.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
Men are good men for using that for getting fertility up when it comes breeding time.
All right.
Yeah.
With vitamin E in it, or I don't know.
I'm not sure the exact vitamins are in it, but like it's an aphrodisiac to get them going.
All right. So probably is loaded with vitamin E. Right. So it's a
See, it's
50-50 mix.
like as brands of seed. I'm using Buchtons at the moment. I used to use Versilaga. Last year, I had a few problems with Versilaga with the seed, the mixes of finding stuff in it, uh,
Okay.
which kind of turned me off it a little bit. But I've been using Buchtons, and occasionally along the way, I'd use an alternative seed. I've tried Slats is a good seed. I've tried a new Slats this year. A lot of people are ranting and raving about. To be honest with you, it didn't do anything for the boards, and I took them back off it because just
And the
people.
birds can be fickle as well, can't they? In
Yeah,
terms of if they're used to a seed and you try them on something new, they mightn't go near it
at
for
the
a while.
start of the breeding season, and it was probably a schoolboy error. I've done it, and I regretted putting them on it, and I've gone back to my original, and they seem quite happy there now.
Right.
So I kind of turned them back their corner.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Stick to what they like and what's working. Um, so that's the nutrition side. Like from a medication perspective, do you treat routinely for on a preventative level for any diseases
uh,
like trich?
ivermectin. I do the ivermectin a couple of times a year. Mostly ivermectin the boards when they come out of the nest box
Right.
or in the nest box. Do it after about when they start to feather up, just a little dab in the back of the neck.
Okay.
I find it keeps them right in the box, and no further issues then after that, if there is anything in the box, which,
And then do you do that every 6 months thereafter, or is that it like for?
well, obviously when they come out of the box, they're treated monthly. Then what I used to use was the red mite solution in the water.
Oh, okay.
The egg salt now, I think that's used every 3 months, is it now? The treatment,
Right.
I
I
think, for
don't know.
that. I've I've started a treatment, whatever, before a month or two before Christmas, so it won't be
Right.
due until probably February at least.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't think egg salt is something you overindulge in either.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard the negative side of it too. Yeah. Or
Uh,
at least, like, yeah.
it's quite,
Um,
it needs to be used sparingly, I think so.
Diluted well. Yeah.
Use it sparingly and right, it's you're using it correctly, so stick to
Right.
stick to what's on the tin.
Yeah. I haven't used. I just use AIL. I fog with AIL, and I'd use ivermectin myself
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Um, what about trike? I had a problem with trike about 6, 8 months ago, and I routinely treat with Ronavet. Do you use anything for trike?
No, I've never. I can't say I've ever identified it in the shed. Maybe it could have been hidden in them. I don't know, but
Right.
I've never had an issue to treat them. I have treated them with it before over the years, but over the last couple of years, I haven't. I have to say no, because I've, you don't know whether it's doing any good or whether it's doing any bad. I don't know.
Mm, mm.
Some people use different things. I used to use the Harkers.
The 401.
That like brings the boards down after you give it to them, and then you're kind of building them back up, and some of them
Yeah,
are heavy on the boards. So,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I think the 401 product's heavy on them. Yeah. Um.
I use a product like they're they're ground feeders, budgies are originally. So I use that the pigeon, uh what do you call it, the stuff to use in the pigeon floors in the coops.
Right.
The,
I
like
don't know what that is now.
yeah, it's supposed to be anti-tricho as well.
Oh, okay.
Whether it's not, but obviously the birds picking around, that's how trike is passed over. It's in the droppings and the birds on the ground, and it's infecting food and that. One thing I'm totally against is cleaning seed with seed winnowers or cleaners, or you know
Yeah.
because like the birds are pooping and that, and
You can
you're
see
just
why
spreading what the other bird has, and you're spreading it around.
I'd be of the same opinion, but you can see why people will revert to winnowers because the amount of waste
Yeah,
that you
absolutely.
shovel out.
Yeah, I hear people like recycling it and then to give it to the youngsters, but like the youngsters are the ones you want to be bringing up, and then they're the ones you don't want to have problems.
Yeah.
They're the ones
Yeah.
that got sensitive to everything, So but it's something I've never done, and to be honest with you, for what you gain back, for me as a small shed, totally wouldn't be worth it for me to do or take the risk in doing it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah. Big risk associated because ultimately,
Maybe if you're going through, you know, 10, 15 bags a month of seed and you have
yeah.
500 birds, it might be something to look at, okay, but it wouldn't be for me. Not.
It's the same principle, Rob, whether you have a small flock or a big shed. You don't want to be using contaminated seed. Like,
That's my view on it. Like contamination is it's something I would look at, and that would be my reason for not doing it. But some people do it, and maybe they're successful with it. I don't know, but
yeah,
it wouldn't. It certainly would not be for me.
yeah. I wonder, is it like the seed's not all it is? It's kind of like a Hoover, right? And it's pulls it through. It doesn't
Yeah,
clean it away.
get a bit of plumbing equipment, pipe and waste pipe, and create a few different vacuums in it with the Hoover, and uh,
Yeah,
sucks off the husks and whatever else, and the seed falls down into your container. But
that's
it's not for the seed from the bowl. Like it's I just I think if they're contaminated with feces and all that, I just don't want to be using it.
yeah. Massive risk. Massive
Yeah.
risk. Agree completely. What about antibiotics or anything like that? Do you do anything
No,
pre?
don't, don't. I never kind of felt the need for it, you know.
Okay.
Um, no, I think a sick bird. I don't believe in a sick bird. If a sick bird is a sick bird, do you want
Hmm.
to really like? It's going to be a sick bird forever. You know,
Yeah.
do you want sickness in your shed? I think survival of the fittest. You know, nature takes its course and nature deals with things.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I'd rather the bird to pass away. If a bird went light for me, I don't think I'd want to be restoring it as a sick bird. Like
Yeah.
it's light, he goes light for a reason. He's going to die basically.
Yeah. And the
No,
thing about it is he would have been taken out or she would have been taken out in the wild, whereas they probably linger a little bit more in the shed because they've got the comfort
exactly.
of the
Yeah,
shed.
we always kind of like look at that bird and say, "Oh, he's too good to lose." Like I've had birds and like nice birds and trying to get them to breed, even some of them, and they wouldn't breed. But they're just better off dying out for me because if
Yeah.
they're not going to breed, I wouldn't want to breed with a sick bird.
Yeah.
Definitely,
100%.
my you want to. Some people have hospital cages and that, and they bring the bird back, and maybe they do bring it back to full health. But you know, I
Time,
don't think it's.
effort, and knowledge, I think. Yeah. So
I've been in nature, let it take its course.
yeah, yeah, I tend to agree with you. Um, just getting into the whole area of breeding and successful breeding, like obviously we can't control the weather and things like moisture in the room and in the boxes, but what things can you control that you think determine your success year on year and the success you've had?
And I think for like you have to make the environment more so comfortable for yourself. And I
Mhm.
think the boards are kind of knock on to that also. Like you have to consider your own health. If it's not good for you, it's not good for the board. So you kind of eliminate what makes things better for you. And dust, I think, is a big thing. The
Mhm.
Hoover certainly in the shed is an important thing. I have an air vac there which sucks dust out myself, and then there's a couple of fans, small little 4-inch fans. They take some stuff out with it also, like just kind of an air change.
Yeah.
And other than that, windows open, maybe doors open in the summer, fresh air.
Yeah, no, but really important, yeah, for birds and for you. Um, and just staying on that topic of breeding, like we were talking about your kind of the origins of your stud being Huxley and Martians. Like, how close do you go when you pair up in terms of the family?
I don't do close. I don't do this brothers, half brothers, or that kind of thing, or you
Okay,
know, cousins or that kind of thing. I kind of keep the gap there, if
right.
possible. I'd never go half sibling to half sibling or anything like that. I done it
Okay,
one time, uh, but one pair 1 year, and I didn't see much of a benefit from it. So I
right.
just there's no point really. It's not,
Yeah,
especially with a small shed. It's the results wouldn't work out for me if I was to do it.
yeah,
You know, I don't know whether people do it occasionally or whatever, but certainly for me, it wouldn't. For 12 breeding cages, to put half them down, half siblings, you're playing with fire. I
yeah.
think.
You're more of a, as you say, you're an outcrosser. You bring in a few birds every year from the
Yeah,
UK.
basically from the same bloodline, but distant.
Right. Okay. And how many would you bring in, Rob? You just bring in cocks, or would you bring in hens, or a new pair, or what's your
I brought hens in recently, like, and I prefer to bring it like just I don't mind taking a bar head. I'd rather take a bar head than an adult hen if you can get
right?
a bar. If somebody's willing to give you the hen, I'd take the chance. Whether it turns out good or bad, like it's indifferent because if the blood is in it, it's in it. It could
Yeah,
be that sibling of a pair or whatever. But some people go and you see this lovely big hen or whatever, and they say, "I want that." Number one, uh, somebody's not getting rid of it if it's that good. You know.
yeah, yeah.
So the,
100%.
you know, I find that the better looking the board is, the worse of, the more hassle you're going to have trying to breed it.
Yeah.
And hens don't travel well from other sheds, so that's one of my reasons why I like to get them young. Now you can have success with hens, but if you really know the person and you trust the person and they say to you, well, definitely like that hen will, you can take a trust. But I've seen birds come from England along over the years and saying, "Oh, that hen, I got this and I got that out of it," never bred. You
Yeah.
know,
It is.
and
It's
they're
a
gone across the
risk.
water. It's a different story.
What's that?
When it's gone across the water on the boat, it ain't coming
Yeah.
back. Well, no, you need to trust. Like if you're buying an older hen, like if you want to take a gamble in it, that's fine. But if I can get a younger hen, like which a bar head or breaking bars or what under 6 months, definitely that would be
Yeah.
my thinking of buying a hen or
Oh, that makes a
you
lot of
know,
sense.
yeah. I
It
perfectly
stacks.
yeah. I kind of mostly would go for hens more so, Paul, because of the fact that like it'd be very hard to get a cockbird.
Mm,
You kind of have to look in your shed and see, are you going to get better to that? Do you want to use it?
that's it.
Like, you're not going to buy a bird in if it's lesser than your own.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
sometimes with the price of birds, like, you know, the better the bird looks, the more bucks
Yeah.
you're going to.
Yeah. 100%. And you got to stack the odds in your favor and go with a
Yeah,
youngster. Obviously.
I've seen birds. The same birds come across. Like sometimes they don't travel well, and you know, I was told once that you should always get the water from the shed when you
Oh,
buy a
really?
bird. Yeah, because
Okay.
therefore, as you say, somebody uses bottled water,
Yeah.
which if you're drinking bottled water, use bottled water then on the bird for a while. But the bird is the most important thing. He's going to dehydrate or hydrate himself
Yeah.
with fluid if he's traveling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if he's drinking water that's totally different, like
Yeah.
in Ireland, if you were to take my water in Swords and say go up to Alan's water in wherever he is and or go up the
Mhm.
north, the water's going to be different.
Yeah. Hard, soft. Yeah.
Means
Different
much
pH.
different than that, but that's what I've heard before. Like it's a good idea to like
At
some
least
people.
you could test it. You could test the water as well. Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
like it's a small little thing, but maybe it does make a difference because sometimes people get birds and they go down, or they get stressed, and then stress brings out other things in the bird, and you know.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Like, how long when you bring in an outcross, do you keep it kind of quarantined for a couple of weeks, or what's your approach when they come in?
I'd kind of keep it. It's still in the shed, but it wouldn't be mixed in with the other birds. It'd be in a separate cage.
Yeah.
I don't have the facility to uh, quarantine it outside the shed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have the shed. My shed is my shed, and that's the space I have. To work with. But
Yeah.
as I say, then I wouldn't be bringing too many birds, 2 or 3 birds in maximum. So they're not a big.
It's not going to
They're not.
disrupt the flock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I observed them then for a couple of months. After a couple of months of their grand, in they go.
Yeah.
Introduce them.
Yeah. Um, and then when it comes to pairing up, like what's your approach? What tips would you give a beginner or
I
anybody really
always look at feather
pairing?
structure. The feather structure would be important to me, and plus you have to look at the compatibility of the birds to features and spots, etc. But mainly I'd be looking for feather quality. Like I'd be
Okay.
comparing feathers of the birds.
So do you pull a feather?
I do, yeah, just on the underside of the rump, just at their back leg there, where
Okay.
where you'd either cut the feathers out or pluck them out around
Okay.
that area. Yeah, and I judge by the feather then, the feather length and quality, size, weight,
Okay.
look and
So it's
stuff.
kind of like an Alan Marks approach. I've seen him doing it with putting the
Exactly. Yeah,
Tipex
yeah.
on.
Yeah, yeah. That'd be something I've kind of taken from there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you don't double up on like you're not. I know from that video, he wasn't doubling up because you're going to get a double buff.
No, no,
You
no.
go,
It's buff.
you go intermediate to buff, or what way do you pair?
Yeah, intermediate to buff, but there's like long feather, like it could be a narrow feather. Then you want to put width into the feather to obviously some people sort of see spots and they're small, but that spot mightn't be small. It might be just a long feather, and it's not spread out
With you,
on the bird.
yeah,
You know what I mean? The spot is not actually spread out, so it looks thinner.
right,
In that sense, like you'd have to like perfectly with a hen. I would like to use a tighter, slimmer hen, more feminine hen,
yeah,
like around the feather on her
right,
to kind of the buffier cock. Certainly, I wouldn't. The buffier hens are hard to work with, and
yeah,
I certainly wouldn't like to be doubling up buff to buff.
right.
That's I think you're heading for trouble. Like
They're lazier and they don't feed as well, and
cyst wise and everything. Like you
yeah,
have to consider that. The feathers are longer and obviously they're more disruptive in the quills and that.
yeah.
They're harder to keep.
And do you find your clutch sizes are bigger with kind of slimmer hands or daintier hands?
They just seem to rear better and sit better and do the job better. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't say like I find hens are kind of whatever way they're bred down. Like they just whether a hen if she's bred from a clutch of tree and her mother reared a clutch of tree, they kind of tend to do the same thing again and
yeah,
rear. And then you can get some hens to lay 6 eggs and hatch 6 eggs successfully and rear most of the 6 or all of the 6.
right.
I think a lot passes down in the birds, and
Yeah.
certainly in the sense that feather pluckers and all that, it's something I don't tolerate. That bird is feather plucking. I don't want to know about it. Just it's gone.
Do you think that carries through, Rob, in the genes?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Whether
Yeah.
it passes down in the young generation, whether it's a hen or cock, it's still going to pass down.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's in the gene.
And hen to hen rather than hen to cock. Like, would you see that come out in the cock as well in terms of plucking? If it was the hen that was plucking, the mother that was plucking.
Yeah, it's a long time since I've had it, or Paul, but I eliminate it straight away. I don't like it's nothing worse than it. It's I don't need
Would
it.
be up there with cysts for you, better cysts.
It's this as well. I don't tolerate it. Don't use it.
Mm, mm.
It's you're asking for trouble. It's just it doesn't. It'll just carry forward.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, Rob, and it'd be great to get your insight on it, is like the quality of the pair in terms of how well they feed the birds. Just like I've just seen chick size where you're looking at the parents going, they've just not fed these chicks well enough because there's no way they could produce something so small and they're so big themselves.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know that
yeah.
way? Do you pair off the back of that knowledge as well, how well they fed, let's say?
And records are very important to keep, like not just for rings and the parents to what pedigree they are, but like obviously make notes, which is a
Yeah,
big thing. And you can see any traits that come down in that generation, and
yeah,
on generations. I think it's very important.
yeah,
Like number one, like in to successful husbandry, you have to know your birds.
yeah,
That's getting to know them, and you know them inside out, and you'll probably remember most of it yourself, but there's some of it you will forget, like oh,
yeah.
that done that, and that the mother of that used to do that, but it's good to know that, and you see any traits to come down,
And do
so
you keep it electronically? Do you transfer it into a computer or do you
I
just keep
no, I had one years ago, Paul, an electronic one. I forget what I got. I think it was called Avian Manager at the time, but
right?
just it's so easier when you're in the shed with a log and you
Yes.
just put it in, instead of coming back in and having to do work in the house to put pedigrees into a computer. And
Yeah. Hard
plus
take data entry.
computers weren't as fast and all that back then.
Yeah.
So.
I'd love to do it and be that disciplined to do it, but yeah, I just keep manual notes. I think had an app before. There was an app that was brought out, and you could take a picture of the bird, the parents, and create a family
This
tree.
is the thing as well.
But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard. It's hard to do it. To be
I think at
disciplined.
the time, when I had that program, Paul, it was a dial-up tone you used to get for the
Or
internet. So
hamster wheel.
it used to take about a half a year to just load the computer.
Yeah, that would put you off.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
just on the nervous moments during the breeding season, like obviously you've got is the egg fair? Do they lay? Do they pair up? Is the egg fertile? The chicks are growing, but the biggest nervous moment for me would be when they jump and are they going to get torn to pieces by the parents? What's your how
fine.
long do
You
you leave
get
with
a good
parents?
insight. I think you get a good insight from the boards yourself. Like if there's
Yeah,
no aggression showing up to that period of time, you're kind of saying to yourself, well, I'm nearly there. You know what I mean? Like nothing has happened, and
yeah,
but start to see a little feather or two going here or there. You obviously know there's aggression coming up, and you know
yeah,
a feather or two is going to lead to 100 feathers if you don't do anything about it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and that's the reality of it. So I think it's more down to people like observing and you know it's beneficial to put little hides in. You can do little cover areas like to. I use a little bit of downpipe, PVC downpipe,
yeah,
just put it into whatever 8-inch length, and then just put a hole through the center of it, and they can go in and out like an S box. And it's
yeah.
just
I borrowed that one from you.
mm. And also, what another good thing I used to use years ago, if I had any trouble like that, is the bats. Do you know the wire bats?
The witch,
The
whereabouts?
bats, word bats, the wire
Okay, yeah,
ones. You hang them
right.
on the cage, they're wire,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
an S
yeah,
box, but they're all wire. Just put a
yeah.
little bedding and that, put the chick in and hang it on the cage, and the cock will go over and feed it through the bars perfectly fine.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
If
that's
you
a
have
good.
a
Never thought of that. Never heard of that one.
you have a plucker, like it's a good way to put them, store them away, like and keep them safe. But
Right. So so they're fed through the bars of it.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, the chicks will sit there crawling away once they're feathering up. You know what I mean? And that,
yeah.
yeah,
So around
well,
the 4
it's
week mark.
yeah, it's a better option than losing the bird to being killed. Or
Yeah,
sometimes I've often seen a bird defaced. Sometimes birds can be a little bit squawkier, and you know, especially if there's a nest of 4 or 5, there's always that one Joey that's going to call out louder. You
yeah,
know, annoy the parents a little bit more.
yeah.
Yeah,
They're the ones.
certainly that box that just hangs on the side of the cage beside the perch, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, let them feed away.
And when you're looking at the clutch, Robbie, maybe from week 2, week 3, you'd have a good idea of whether the
Uh,
board's
yeah,
big
you kind
ones.
of you see a feather. I like to see a nice brow coming on the board, and you know, a brow line. And if I kind of see that, I kind of at 5 weeks, then I will know the birds will change significantly. Then over that time, they
Yeah,
might go backwards when you take them away, which they usually do.
yeah,
So usually at a 5 week stage, if I like what I see, I figure that that bird will be a keeper.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and the
Um,
sport completely changed as well. Like you know, they transform, and you say, where did that come from?
it is amazing. Yeah, when that happens.
Mm.
Like the what you've probably seen. I've done quite a bit of hand rearing, which is such a pain in the arse, but it can be worth it. Do you top up or what's your
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I seen a bird that's having a little bit of problem, I check the birds at the end of the night before I lock up, like about
right?
an hour before it lights out. And if I seen that the birds weren't being topped up correctly, or the hens or the cocks were having problems feeding, you know, I certainly would top them up at night. Certainly at night time rather than the day, because in the daytime is when the parents should be doing it. They should be
Yeah,
getting calling for the food, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're
yeah,
topping it up during the day, it's not really a good idea unless you really have to.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But certainly that's the time it's beneficial. Lights out. It's not going to be fed for another 8 hours, possibly with light, darkness.
yeah,
So that's a full belly and it's there for the night, and you know it's going to be alive the next morning.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
And
makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
one of the biggest assets you can ever have in your shed is a crop needle. And
yeah,
anybody that doesn't have a crop needle, if they breed budgies, get yourself a crop needle.
yeah,
And A21 or A19, either one of them, they work perfectly fine.
Mhm.
So that's
So
that's
it's
the
it, yeah,
advice I can give to somebody.
yeah.
Have that.
So when it's necessary, really, and at night before they um hit the sack. Yeah,
And if people aren't sure, it's usually a 16 gauge. I think it's the proper one, or a 14 gauge, depending on what you're comfortable with. You can get them
yeah,
different sizes, you can get them hooked, you can get them straight. It's a simple task just to decide the amount. Once you start doing it once or twice, it's grand.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking for the first one or two.
But yeah, definitely. I want you. I've seen people like nearly. I'm not doing that, and you either want to lose the chick or you do that. That's
Yeah,
it. And I've often seen people that don't do it, and you do it for them, and you say, "Oh, should I have done that?" At that big guys now, it's on my head.
yeah. Well, it's, train them, teach a
But
man
look,
to fish.
it's
Yeah,
always the cracker of a bird that won't feed itself, and or obviously goes back a little bit. It's probably lazy, and plus the parents are lazy too. Sometimes we're breeding exhibition boards, and they're,
yeah,
they're lazy. They don't sit properly. They don't feed properly. You're playing God with them, and
yeah,
that's how it's going. You're artificially feeding it as well sometimes. So
yeah,
you're 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 agreeing whether it lives or whether it dies, really. And
yeah, yeah.
it's
Big
why,
time.
especially when you get something good, it's very disappointing when you see it going back and the parents don't want to feed it anymore. That's when your crop needle is essential.
And it correlates back to the heavier the feather, I think, the
Yeah,
lazier.
you get lazier and that they don't sit properly, they don't incubate properly, they just they're
Yeah,
clumsy and everything. The birds years ago used to sit. I put on my nest boxes. I've put perches on the outside of them, which Ospringer don't usually have perches on the outside. But the reason
yeah,
being that I just want, if the cock will sit outside the box and feed the hen in through, it's a perfect word for me. Doesn't always
yeah,
happen. I think if nowadays you see a lot of cocks going into boxes, and sometimes they play rugby in there. You know,
yeah,
eggs are being
yeah.
scattered, and that's how eggs are turning and losing and going bad and going off. You know,
So
adult.
the perch you added to the boxes has paid dividends, you think?
I often see a lot of the cocks just sitting there, yeah, rather than just sitting in the box all the time. Yeah. Now
Right.
it hasn't improved things for me, but I'd rather see them sitting outside the box rather than inside.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you're always suspicious while they're in there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not good. Like the hen obviously might get a pain in her face with him there sometimes, and just a fight break out, and the eggs are
Yeah.
being scattered. There's a rugby match going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like hearing those sounds.
Yeah.
Um, and Rob, once you've kind of got over the chick is cracking seed, do you put it into a baby flight and let it mature
Yeah,
for a while?
straight
Or do
into
you,
straight into the baby fly. When I see it from the first day, I'd see a crack and see it, and I knew everything was fine in the cage, and I would leave it there probably between 3 to 5 days and take it out. If I see him really eating, then he's coming out. I wouldn't
right.
overleave it there. No, absolutely not. And if there's 4 or 5 of them there, just one at a time take away. It reduces the stress on the other birds feeding it. Like
Yeah.
one less bird to feed there
Yeah.
makes it
100%.
easier for them.
And when it goes, how long would you keep it in a baby flight before you put it into the main flight?
Some mature a lot quicker than others, and some don't. And
Yeah.
if the bird is maturing a lot quicker and it's breaking its bars quickly, and it's up around the 3 or 4 month period, definitely up into the adult flight. You know,
Yeah.
it's good for them. Like
Yeah.
that's how they develop. It's nature for them to get into the adults and see what the adults are doing and be an adult.
Yeah, 100%. And like what I find is I have to move them on because they become the bullies then when the next clutch comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah. That can
So
happen too. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You get some of them that pick on the younger ones coming in.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
So
yeah, when you put them up into the big school, then it's a different
that's
story.
it. That's it. Let's see how you how you fare now, pal.
Yeah,
Um, cool. Look, so that's brilliant. Some great insights there on the breeding stuff. Just just before we get into show preparation, and how are you for time here? Because we're going
yeah. No,
well.
go, Jack.
All right. I need to feed my birds. The ideal Budgerigar, obviously you've got that grey green, which is a cracker. Would that fit the bill in terms of your ideal bird, or is there something else in your mind?
Well, they've come on a little bit more since him now. Like there is some others out there now that has taken preference over him. Like that bird, I think he's 2019.
Right.
So he's still
Doesn't
breeding.
matter.
You know, he's probably he's a showbird, and he was a showbird at the time, and he's still a showbird when you put him in the cage, and that's what I like to see. It's a showbird when you put him into a cage, he transforms into a different bird.
Right.
You know, like when he gets, I hate to see birds slouching and breeding in show cages. They need to
Yeah.
stand up tall, and that's the way I like to see them. Like sometimes you see birds and they're like that, hanging over a perch,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You know, as well above the back line of the cage.
And he's produced how many chicks over the years, Rob?
I haven't counted Paul, but I'd say he's produced at least 20.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Anything as good as him?
what's that?
Anything as good as himself?
Uh, hens he has, yeah.
Right.
But I've had him with an opaline hen this year, and recently there's two. They've just gone into the adult flight. They were late breds. They're two
Right.
cocks, and they look very, very good now. They have,
Right.
you can see his threats in them. So,
Class.
but to get that, like, there's probably about 10 grey greens out there that are similar at the moment. So
Right.
hopefully they can pollute the stud a bit.
Happy days. And in turn, like he'd great height over the perch. Is that what you're seeing in
That'd
the
be
one?
something. That was something I'd look for. Yeah, I wouldn't. Uh, I hate to see shorter bodied birds. I'd like to see them standing tall on perches, and you know, sometimes you see tennis balls on perches, and
Yeah.
they don't have style. They don't have anything. Like, you know, they might be good for a breeding cage if that's what you want, but certainly
Yeah.
I'd like to see style. You know, balanced bird style, back skull, blow obviously, and weight ahead, and you know.
Yeah.
Some birds are natural when you put them into show cage. I was in England last year with a couple of lads here, Alan and Ron Malloy. We were at the White Rose stud, and there was a grey green there, and it was a super looking bird. But the minute you put it into a show cage, he was just a different bird. He just
Right.
looked into that show cage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he was super.
It's a genetic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they're right. Like, and you put some birds in and they flutter around and they nearly kill themselves. You know, panicking around. I hate to see that in a bird also.
Yeah. Or pull tight. That's the other thing. Like if they don't have the body structure and they pull tight in a show because they're nervous.
And that can happen too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like that's part of like the knowing your birds too, what you're breeding down. Like, you
Hmm.
know, if you don't like something, eliminate it from your shed, because if you don't like it and you use it, you're going to still see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or compensate for it with a big, the hands feature.
Yeah,
Like if
like
you're missing the pull.
I've often had birds in the shed and they're good birds, and you walk into the shed the next minute, the bloody bird is bouncing all over the place in a
Yeah.
cage. And you say to yourself, "Well, I can't stand you. You're gone."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and no matter how good the bird is, it's not going to stop that.
Yeah. And it's heartbreak when you see that, I presume, at the start. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then you realize it's not going to serve you well in any way. So
and it does break down, because I've used one or two of them over the years, and it's in the youngsters also. And I don't believe in show cage training. Either the bird has it or the bird hasn't got it. Usually the family, if they have it, they have it. I never put birds in a show cage to train them. Never,
wow.
ever. I
Right.
went to the shed, I will look at the birds and I'll put them in for a couple of minutes and look at it to see how it's developing and what it looks like. And I'll change a few of them around and look at them. But I've never specifically put birds in with marbles on the bottom of the cage or leave it
Right.
there for an hour or 2 hours. No, it either has it or it doesn't have it.
Well, that cuts the show preparation section
Yeah,
down.
no, yeah. Show preparation is very important. I think it's the key, not alone for the bird, but the actual presentation of the bird and the cage. To
Hmm.
me, I do be called
Oh, yeah.
OCD at times for the cages and that, but I like a clean show cage.
The whole package.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like there's no point having a lovely Victor with a bad frame on it.
exactly. Yeah, no, it's a nice way of putting it, actually. Yeah. So you're mentioning you're going purely on genes and behavior of the bird, so you don't necessarily train them in the cage, but do you spray your birds and all that sort of
Yeah,
nice stuff?
it's very thing. In the summertime, especially, like obviously that's our show period.
Hmm.
Daily basis. Like I go in and I could spray the birds 5, 6 times a day. Like
Right.
if the day is nice here, I'd be in and out of the shed a lot. I usually leave the door open here in the summertime if I'm at the back, and I would just ramble in and out, and especially if it was anyway warm, and just whack them out with a
Light,
sprayer.
light sprays like 5, 6 times a day. Yeah.
Well, no, to get them firstly into condition, I would heavy spray them to be like
Right.
ground, and then closer the show would obviously come, the less you spray them.
Yeah.
So for a competition, on a competition end, I'd probably say to people, spray them as often as you can and as much as you can.
One day before the show, dip them in a bucket.
Heavily sprayed it. No,
Hammer on the
no,
bottom.
certainly just light mist. And from the week of the show, after I'd plucked and spotted and that, they wouldn't receive any more spraying.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
they had a little bit of touching up it, if there was a quail or anything there, that bit of blood, you'd certainly try and touch it up. But normally, if there's blood there, you're not going to get rid of it really.
Yeah. And your baby shampoo.
I put different stuff in the sprays.
Right.
Yeah,
You don't necessarily
uh,
do toothbrush to the head.
I do. Yeah. I use the toothbrush. Yeah. And some people use toothpaste. This is one thing for getting rid of the blood. Baby
All right.
shampoo is another, and yeah. But I've used baby shampoo. I've never found it anyway too good.
Yeah.
Bonnet I use also.
What is it?
Bonadine,
Okay, yeah, for the blood. Right.
disinfectant. It's like iodine. It's people kind of get scared when they see the color of it. They say I'm not putting that near the bird. But
Brown, isn't it? Kind of a
yes,
brown tint. But
yeah, the brownie black
mm,
there.
could
But
understand why you have an albino, yeah.
it'll be grass. No, but believe it or not, it does rinse out.
Yeah, that happened to me last year. I had the pink iodine blocks, and one of the
Yeah,
cocks was pink. I
that's
took
another show failure is to give
it
them any
is,
vitamins or anything, like 2 weeks before the show, seed and water. That's basically it.
yeah,
No veg, no nothing.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Dry filler.
And then like it's really do you when do you load up your show cages? Morning of the
Oh, the
event?
morning. Yeah. Probably about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I wouldn't the night before. It's just, it'd be too much stress on the board. The less time the board has in the show cage, the better.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't want to be tired in it. So,
And we're lucky enough we don't have a huge, I say lucky enough, but like I mean we've two shows a year in the Republic. So and it's obviously just a drive to Kilnamanagh, so it's not
yeah,
that
like,
stressful. Do you
if
come straight back in to the flight after?
if
Yeah.
you compare it to England, like, you have 5 or 6 hours probably traveling. At max here, we probably in this country, if you're traveling from one coast, it's probably 2.5 to 3 max. So,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
any point where you're coming from, you're well there within 3 hours.
Yeah. We're
Or
blessed in that regard.
yeah,
We're
absolutely.
blessed in
Yeah,
that
it's a
regard.
small island. A lot of people don't have to travel too far.
Yeah. So look, just wrapping up with some nuggets of advice. You've always got tons of experience. So two things. Sustaining the hobby in Ireland, any thoughts on that? And then the second thing was just any kind of nuggets of advice for beginners or starters.
Yeah, just get out and visit as much people as possible and recognize what you like and kind of go with that. And like, there's some good guys out there in the club, and uh, get out and visit them and you know.
Yeah.
You know, the hobby has come, like the standard of boards are quite high in Ireland. Like,
Yeah.
if it's as good as anywhere, really. Like, you know what I mean? We're not playing second base to anybody. You know, there's some super boards there from north and south.
Yeah.
You know, certainly, like the hobby is strong as it stands, as it is. Getting more people into it would probably be the primary thing for it.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, there is some good boards out there, and it's just people have. It's like anything. You either you like a certain color, you don't like a certain color, you like a certain shape type better. You know, identify what you like and stick with it. Take your time and visit the right people. So
Yeah.
I say, you know, you won't go too far wrong.
Yeah.
Like, there's some good
Yeah.
lads at the club there at the moment, and some good boards. And anybody that's thinking of taking it up or taking it up, just take your time and do it slowly. Success doesn't come overnight. You got to keep at it.
Yeah.
Don't
That's
try and expect it in year 1 or 2 or 3, but it doesn't happen that way. Like,
yeah.
you get a lot of disappointments before you get your successes and wins.
Yeah. And I guess that's why it's kind of a stepwise kind of apprenticeship. So
Yeah, it's good in a sense. Yeah, definitely.
brilliant. All right. Well, look, I'll call that a wrap. And thanks a million, Robbie. Really brilliant insights there. So I'm sure this will be a useful tool for all the members in the
I
club.
hope somebody takes something from it.
Thanks a million. I'm sure they will. 1,000,000%. So
Yeah.
thanks a million, and I'll
Okay,
catch you soon.
no problem. Thanks very much. All right. Bye bye. See ya. Bye.